Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us on this beautiful day. It's such a nice day here in Montreal, so I hope it's nice in your neck of the woods. So today we launch our fourth season of Caring Conversations, a free online discussion forum that offers a safe space for caregivers of people living with dementia to learn from experts, share concerns, and ask questions. This initiative is brought to you by McGill University's Dementia Education Program, which is supported by private donations. We'd like to thank the Petro-Canada Caremakers Foundation for supporting Caring Conversations. Our program offers a comprehensive range of free resources to educate and support people living with dementia, family and informal caregivers, healthcare professionals, medical students, and the public at large. We invite you to visit our website, mcgill.ca/dementia, where you can access many free multilingual resources. And now let's meet our moderators. Lucy Barylak received her Master of Social Work from the McGill School of Social Work. She's developed evidence-based training for seniors and caregivers, and she's lectured in the field of social gerontology and presented at major conferences. Her research studies have been published in numerous journals. Ms. Barylak received the Queen's Jubilee Award for her role in developing a national coalition to support caregivers across Canada. Joanne Besner is an educator, professional coach, and caregiver. She received her Bachelor of Social Work and Master of Business Administration from McGill University. Her 35-year career in public community healthcare in Quebec spans many roles, including frontline case manager, clinical supervisor, manager, researcher, and trainer. Today's topic is the compassionate lie. Lucy and Joanne will discuss the challenge of balancing one's right to honesty with lying and deception to minimize distress and anxiety when caring for a person with dementia. They'll share advice on when, how, and what justifies not telling the truth, and we'll invite you to share your own tips and lived examples. We ask that you please keep your microphones turned off. We'll unmute people as needed once we open the discussion. Please note that we're recording today's webinar, and the recording will be posted on the Caring Conversations page of our website. I'll post that in the chat. So ladies, please go ahead.
Thank you, Diane, for the intro, and welcome back, everyone, to a new season of Caring Conversations, and welcome to those who are first joiners today. We're going to tackle a dilemma that nearly all families struggle with at some point during the course of caring for someone with dementia. When do we tell the truth or not? Honesty is a deep-seated value that guides individuals and society and ourselves. So is it okay not to be honest? So let's be clear about what we're talking about. Call it what you call it. Lying, fibbing, altering the truth, bending the truth, avoiding, white lies, therapeutic lies, deception. And I'm wondering if those of you who are with us today, have you found yourself yet in this predicament? So shouldn't we tell the truth? Yes, of course, it's a human right. A person living with dementia deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. A person living with dementia should be involved in what happens to them. They should not be ignored or dismissed. Everyone deserves to know the truth, correct? So shouldn't we tell the truth? Well, then why would we withhold the truth? Well, to lower our person's distress. Telling a hard truth can trigger panic or sadness or anger. It can make it easier on us, the care partners, to stop repetitive asking, to keep daily routine smooth. And if you've been with us in previous webinars, you know how Lucy and I emphasize the importance of routine, controlling what we can within an uncontrollable illness. Routines are key to safety and comfort for the person living with dementia, and of course, to keep the peace. But clearly, it's just not that simple. So to start the discussion today, I want to share a personal story with you. back in the days when Lucy and I worked at the CIUS, the CLSC in home care, our goal was to support people to live at home as long as possible, as best we could. But at some point, many families reached the decision it was time to relocate their person to a nursing home, for example. We were often challenged by the following dilemma. They did not want to share the decision with their person living with dementia, and especially not at the beginning of the application process, as it could take a year, if not more. And even sometimes they didn't want to share, even to the day they were moving. So emotionally, we could understand. However, believing we all have rights and free choice, and to make things even more complicated, legally, unless the person living with dementia has been legally declared incompetent by a physician, the application for care must be signed by that person. So I had this discussion with my brother, who's a relocation consultant. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today. And he faced this dilemma often. He saw things very differently than I. I said, we cannot do these things behind someone's back. These are not the dark ages. And he challenged me and said, Joanne, no matter what the laws and policies say, in my experience, when families withheld the truth, the outcome was better. Little white lies equals no harm done. So how do we navigate this dilemma is why we're here today. And we're going to come back to this particular theme later in our conversation. And I really hope we hear from you and your experiences. So is it even ethical not to tell the truth? So we looked at what professional ethicists say, and they give us 3 important points to answer this question: intent, impact, and alternatives. Intent. Is the lie being told to protect the person's well-being, or is it just more convenient? Impact. If the lie reduces suffering, it may be justified. Alternatives. Is there another way to be truthful without causing harm? Then that should be considered first. White lies can be ethical if they serve a compassionate purpose. So that brings us to this saying, do no harm. And this guides my professional practice. Lying to someone who has dementia may be justified when it's necessary to promote well-being or prevent harm. Medical ethicists call this beneficence and non-maleficence. Beneficence involves the act of doing good. Non-maleficence, on the other hand, means to do no harm. But are there times when compassionate lies should not be used? And of course, the answer is yes. Not all situations require white lies. What if they really, really want to know? Unless it is dangerous or overly upsetting, sometimes gentle honesty is the best approach. So let's turn to the case for telling the truth. And there are several reasons why being truthful with dementia patients is often advocated. We must first look at the stage of the disease they are at. Just because someone is diagnosed with cognitive impairment is not adequate reason to withhold the truth. There are 3 main stages of dementia: early, moderate, and later stages, advanced. Also, your decision can vary depending on the stage, and consider whether they have behavior complications like delusions or hallucinations, which are common generally later and not for everybody. So what is the case for telling the truth? To maintain dignity, as we've said, lying to any adult, even those with cognitive impairment, compromises their dignity. To build trust, honest communication makes better relationships. Deception, even when meant kindly, can undermine trust between people. To reduce confusion, people living with dementia can become distressed when they sense things don't exactly add up. Being truthful may, in these cases, reduce anxiety. It empowers people to deal with reality. Accurate information allows you to better cope and respond to your circumstances, especially at early stages. To uphold wishes and preferences. Deception goes against a person's right to know the reality of their health and make informed decisions. And there are many to make at early stages of the disease. It avoids complications from deception. If you've ever bent the truth or, told a lie, you know that maintaining that inaccurate story requires effort and memory. You need to remember what you even said. Truth-telling is sometimes just simpler. So here's the key. Number 1, what stage of the disease are they at? And number 2, you know your person and their personality. Assess them and their circumstances. What would they really want to know? How have they handled receiving information in the past? How have they demonstrated lately that they may react? Are their reactions brief and short-lived, or do they linger on and cause misery? And if you just still can't answer the question, you're just not sure, there are no magic answers. It may come down to simple trial and error. So we want to offer you some concrete tips. How do you do it? So we're going to give you some do's and don'ts, and we're going to start with the don't. Do not ignore the question. Nobody wants to feel dismissed. Do not respond with, don't you remember? Or, I just told you. We all get triggered. We all make mistakes. But responding that way is just going to incite anxiety and begin, butting heads. And of course, along the same lines, do not argue. A person living with dementia, they don't have the insight, they don't have the reasoning to be able to discuss this and argue with you. So what do we do? Number 1, explore their needs. Sometimes a question they're asking has nothing to do with the question. It could mean there's something else going on and they can't express it. They may be thirsty, hungry, cold. They may have a pain. They may need to go to the bathroom. So first, explore their needs. Secondly, use their words. Repeat their words with compassion. Sometimes that will just let them know they've been heard. Use their question to reminisce perhaps about a person or thing they're inquiring about. Use their question to tell the story. Use their question to ask them another question and to validate their question by acknowledging a feeling you think they might be having. And then specifically for people who are in more advanced stages and do have behavior issues, distract them. Link their question to a distraction with photographs or music or another activity that you know they enjoy. So on that note, I'm going to pass you over to my colleague, Lucy Barylak, who's going to get deeper into our feelings and emotions.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Joanne. Yeah, deception and lying could turn out to guilt or other feelings and emotions. So just because you justify hiding the truth is okay, it may still not sit well with you. It could sit at the pit of your stomach. Maybe you promised to be honest. Maybe you promised they would never have to move to a nursing home, and promises had to be broken. Or you may feel angry and resentful. Your person doesn't remember you, confuses you with someone else, believes you are deceiving them, even though intellectually you know it is the disease. When you're living it, it can be hard not to take it personally, or to think that they might even be doing it on purpose. You're not alone. Acknowledge your feelings, be kind to yourself. Embrace the use of compassionate lie as a strategy for the betterment of the person with dementia and you, the care partner, and the situation. It does not mean you are a liar or you have compromised values. If used compassionately, it means just the opposite. So here are some questions that you may want to tackle or are tackling, and I know that there are others as well.
So, this is the part where Lucy and I were going to exchange a bit on specific scenarios using some of the ideas that we've brought forth. And some of them are, if somebody asks, when can I go home? I want to go home. The second one we're going to talk about is, where is so-and-so? If somebody is missing or perhaps has passed away and they're constantly searching for them. The third one is knowing about your diagnosis when they ask, is there something wrong with me? Fourth is, what about somebody who is insisting on driving? How come I can't drive? And fifth, we're going to go back to the scenario I started with on having to relocate. So let's get to our first one. And this is not limited. The rest of our session is just going to be talking about situations. So Lucy, let's start with the first one. When can I go home? When a person asks that, can you give us some of our ideas? And then if I'm going to ask Diane, if you can check the chat, if anybody here wants to add anything or raise their hand and offer something else at the end, we'll check in at the end of each one. So Lucy, go ahead with the first one. I want to go home. When can I go home?
It's hard. First of all, try not to argue about whether where they are is home. If someone asks to go home, talk about that place. Describe a place they had lived in the past. If they don't recognize where they are now as home at that moment, then for that moment it isn't home for them. Ask if there is anything you can do to make them happier where they are now. Often, when a person with dementia asks to go home, it refers to the sense of home rather than home itself. Find out where home is for them and what they like about it. Reassure the person that they are safe and cared for. Check that they are comfortable, not too hot or cold, hungry or thirsty, or needing to go to the toilet. Keep a photograph album at hand to gently distract them. Sometimes looking at pictures from their past and being given the chance to reminisce will ease feelings of anxiety. It might be best to avoid questioning it about the picture or the past. Instead, just make comments, talk about the pictures, and remember on occasion. Distract them with food or other activities such as a walk. Ask them as many details as possible about their home. Get them talking about pleasant memories. That's what you're trying to do, to distract them.
Yeah, I really appreciate those suggestions, especially the first one. We don't always think of that, that they don't, where home is for them is where home is. I really like that. I'm just wondering if anybody in our audience has any other ideas. It's always great when we hear from peers. Anything in the chat, Diane, or...
Nothing so far in the chat. No, you can either, just got something in. All right, here we go from Tina. My husband would go missing every day, so I would explain how his safety and well-being was most important and that he had to stay here for now.
I'm wondering, is there more? Or
she was just asking if this is right or wrong, like the two.
Yeah. Oh, because you know what? My immediate question was, well, did it work? That's what's coming to my mind. So I would be curious if it worked.
Yes.
Yes.
It did work. Yes.
So, I think there's your answer. And, I don't know if you agree with me, Lucy, but that may work for one person and it also may not work for the next person.
It's very much what you said. You know your person better than anyone else.
Yeah. The only thing I want to add about that is, let's say it didn't work. If it does and reassuring them works, we know that if somebody's getting lost, we want to make sure they're wearing an identification bracelet. Or today they have something even more useful, And again, it poses the question, do you want, about being honest with them? But there are bracelets with GPS so that if somebody is frequently getting lost, we don't have, we can actually find their location and still allow them the freedom of going out, which I think is a gift. But I think if it doesn't work, again, safety trumps everything. And we do have to find ways to keep our person safe. So thank you for sharing that.
We have one more. We have
okay.
another comment in the chat. So from Sylvie, Sylvie, what she does is she shows a big photo of her father and tells her this is home now, and she agrees.
Love that.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So you see, this is why I say when you care partners share with other care partners, these are the best ideas ever. So thank you for that one as well.
We have another question. Sorry, Joanne.
No,
we
I
have
was going
another
to say
question
move
in
to the
chat.
next, but let's go.
Perfect. So Christina is saying, my mother seems to want to hold on to everything. Pieces of scrap paper, crumpled napkin. She's starting to hoard, and this was not normal for her before. So she's asking if you have any advice on how to tackle this.
Lucy, you want to take this one?
Well, I mean, things change, as the disease progresses, and sometimes things just happen that are unusual. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that where it means about hoarding, but using scraps of paper, what if you would, take them away? I'm not quite so sure how to answer it because I'm not sure of how the hoarding has become a difficult issue or not.
Yeah, it's interesting, Diane. I don't know if there was ever any other webinars, but that could be an interesting topic to tackle if we haven't done it yet and the McGill cares. But I want to go back to the piece of paper because about if they're holding it in their hand and actually crumpling it, tearing it, ripping it, this can actually be a really good activity that we've used in our day centers and drop-in centers for people because it keeps them busy, and in some ways they can sometimes equate that with work.
And it could also be soothing.
Soothing, yes.
Nice.
Good point.
Nice,
So let's move on to our next question. And Diane, if there's more, can we come back to that? Okay.
Yeah, we do have one more, so we'll come back to it after.
Okay, if there's only one more, let's go for it.
Okay. So Larry has mentioned that he has often asked his spouse where home is. She can't tell him, simply the place where she is right now at home, or simply that the place where she is now is not home. Sorry. Yeah.
So say that again. She's insisting the place isn't home?
Yeah, so Larry says, I have often asked my spouse where home is. However, she can't tell me. Simply the place where she is now is not home. So they recognize that the place is not their home.
Yeah. And I think then you can go back to some of the suggestions that Lucy gave about just talking, looking in pictures. What is home like to you? What's that feeling? Okay. So first of all, thank you for all the questions. That always makes it more interesting. So our next scenario is a tough one. This is one about dealing with the death of someone in the person living with dementia's life. So Lucy, can you share tips if they're asking for their spouse, their partner, a friend, a relative who's died and doesn't come to visit? What tips would you share?
Well, learning of a spouse or family member's death can be shocking and intensely sad. Yet repeatedly telling them inflicts grief that can be equally traumatizing. So some options are that you could look at is break the news again only if memories are still intact. Let it fade if the loss is forgotten. Answer gently, focusing on positive feelings. You can say, you loved him so much. I know you miss him. Redirect to a warm memory. Let's look at your wedding photos and remember how happy you were. Redirecting is really a good way to sort of get them away from that feeling. Lie only if essential to avoid harm. You can say he's away on a trip, but loves you very much. When they're asking for a partner's relative or friend who has died, Telling the person the truth may shock and upset them. As for them, it feels like the first time they have heard the news. With short term memory problems, they can experience the shock of grief repeatedly if they continue to be told every time they ask. Some care partners choose to tell the person initially, but do not repeat it because if it becomes a reoccurring question. You may feel that reducing the person's stress is more important than telling them the truth. If you choose to tell the truth in this scenario, try to give them the news in a sensitive and compassionate way, offering warmth and support. Think about whether it is in their best interest to continue to be told this news every time they ask. Try not to give details of how and when it happened if it was a long time ago, as this can add to the confusion caused by their time shifting, as things go by. Try to ignore the question. However, try to ignore the question. Try not to ignore the question. That's important. The person may continue to feel distress if their concern for their loved one is being dismissed. You may need to acknowledge their questions first, perhaps by saying, I don't know the answer to that at the moment. Is there a reason that you need them? Or instead of answering the question directly, you could say, do you miss mom? And encourage them to talk about their mother, possibly using photos to reminisce. They may be asking about a particular person as they have an unmet need, which this person may have provided earlier in their life. This could be a sense of security and a partner, that a partner that gave it to them, or love that their mother gave them. Try and explore this and allow them to talk about the person they miss. You might use phrases to show you understand how they are feeling, such as, it sounds like you're missing your mom at the moment, or you must be lonely without your husband. Try to meet the need, for example, for security and affection as best as you can.
A lot. That's a lot of great examples about even, how to say the sentences, the words. Diane, is there anyone else who wants to add about this one when you've lost someone?
Yes, we have 3 different comments in the chat. So many people seem to be dealing with this. So I'll start with Frances. Frances is a volunteer in Quebec from Kenya. Sometimes when she's caring for someone with dementia, they ask her about a loved one who's passed away a long time ago. Telling the truth causes them fresh pain every time, but lying feels like betrayal. How can caregivers make peace with that emotional conflict?
Well, yeah, we talked about that. I mean, nobody wants to lie. We want to be honest. We want to be respectful, as Joanne said. But if you see that it's causing a person pain and there's no other way of dealing with it, sometimes it is important to lie. And again, we were talking about it before. It all depends on how the person is dealing with. The one thing that you want to do is not stress them out.
Yeah, I think the question's really an important one. And going back to how you started, Lucy, with our emotions, because, we can read all the notes on the slide and we can tell ourselves, well, I have the 3 points, I'm being ethical, I'm reducing their distress. And still, you were saying, Lucy, you could feel sick in the pit of your stomach because you're still lying to them. And I think in that case, yeah, it's one of these unfortunate things about having to do something you're so uncomfortable with.
Right.
The only other thing I can think of is remind yourself you are doing a kindness to them. You really are being kind, and it's okay. Thanks for sharing that. Very difficult.
So Sarah shared, once a day, my mom asks me and her sister where her mom is. She'll say, oh, sorry, it just moved up on me. Hold on. Okay, she'll say, have you seen my mother? It's heartbreaking. I often say she's doing well. And then my mom moves on. And other times she'll say, mom's gone, eh?
Yeah.
That's really nice because you're going along with her feelings, and that's very important. remember Joanne said, listen to their words,
Yeah.
and go along with that. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Great example.
And Zia mentions, my wife asks about her mother. It's difficult for me to say that she's passed away. So.
Yeah.
You could say, she's a really nice lady. I mean, you could talk about it a little bit more, or you could distract.
Yeah. I think that's
So,
where reminiscing would be really a good one. Let's talk about her because, even, for anyone who's lost someone, we make them real by just talking about them and thinking of the good memories.
For sure.
so Maureen is suggesting that she thinks you can say back, I haven't seen them in a while. I'll get back to you. What are your comments
Another
on that?
great one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Anything that works.
Thank you. Thank you for all these great suggestions.
Oh, here's another beautiful one. In my case regarding my mom bringing up my dad, I take out photo albums. I take her to the cemetery. I bring her to church to light a candle. That makes her feel like she's doing something good to remember and honor him.
Oh,
That's really touching.
yeah. Love that. It's distraction. It's a healthy outing. It brings them wonderful memories.
And peace.
Yeah. Peace. Yeah. So, Diane, should we move to the next scenario?
Sure. There's a few more comments, but it's up to
No,
you.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We have time, I believe.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I'm just trying to understand this one here. Let me just read it.
Sure.
Maybe you'll. My mom, best friend are repeating asking me, my mom, and wanting to talk to her on the phone. However, the daughter asked me not to, send away, not to let her know.
Hmm.
I'm not really sure I understand that.
It sounds maybe like a friend is asking, and the caregiver daughter. We can only do our best to understand. And, I think in that case, I mean, you probably have to just abide by the wishes of the daughter. And I would say, unless you see distress, probably it would be a good idea to discuss it privately with the daughter. Maybe that would help you understand why is she saying that? Is she doing it from experience she's already had and knows that it's going to distress the person? Or maybe the daughter's afraid and is just afraid to try. So it might be a good idea to have a conversation together.
We have one last great suggestion as well. My wife wrote her life story where she wrote that then she passed away, and I show her what she wrote.
Okay.
So I guess in her life story, she wrote about someone passing away. So the person will show his wife what she had written.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would imagine she did that also earlier on, which is, we talked about that, or we will be actually talking about the importance of writing things down. Yeah. Thank you for that. Lucy, did you want to add something?
No, I mean, whatever works. I mean, you have to go along with the person.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one I think is really a tough one. And this is the one about, the issue of knowing your diagnosis. Should they be told the truth? And anyway, Lucy, please share about this one.
Well,
Because I've heard such varying answers on this one. What do you think?
it is huge, first of all.
Yeah.
But I believe that it's best to learn one's diagnosis at early stages. Disclose diagnosis before the progression. Sharing an early dementia diagnosis allows adaptation while cognitive abilities permit. There may be things that they want to do while they are still able, things they want to say, things they may want to write down. In this, not disclosing takes that opportunity away from someone. So please think very carefully about that. Today many physicians will often ask the person if they want to know the diagnosis. They offer the person the choice to decide. Some actually do not want to know. Some people may already have an idea and may not want it said out loud or may not want to hear it. They may feel they will be stigmatized by the diagnosis and be treated differently. We need to acknowledge we are all different and truth can be embraced and appreciated by some, or the opposite, resented and unwanted by others.
Yeah, this is,
Something
yeah,
to
I find,
think about. Yeah, for sure.
but it's interesting the piece about some people want to know their diagnosis and some people don't. And maybe myself personally, I think, no, I want all the information. I want to know. There's things I want to say and do, but I can understand how somebody might feel, you know what? Don't tell me. Maybe they even kind of know, but they don't want it. I can understand that. So I'm wondering, I know, some care partners have shared with me in the past, who's the right person to tell? Shouldn't the doctor tell them? Or sometimes the physician might say to me, you tell them, and isn't that a big burden for me? So I think these are all also really challenging questions around this one. Diane, anyone in our audience has something to add?
Yeah, we have a comment from Zia. Some people refuse to accept that they have dementia, and this is difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it is very difficult.
Yeah.
It also
Well,
depends on where the stage that they're at. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's also hard to accept that life is going to be different. It's not the path I chose. It's not the path I may want to be in. So, and I think it takes a lot of time to process. I would ask, how long has it been? And then, is it the memory? Is it the reasoning? And does not wanting to accept it help them in any way? Any other comments before we move on?
Yeah, there's a great suggestion by Tina. I believe, yes, because respecting and being honest with my husband so he could understand what was happening to him. I wrote the definition in his notebook so he could read it when he wanted to. When he progressed, I ripped the page out of his book. I felt he had accepted living in long-term care because he understood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lucy, we often talk about journaling and how cathartic it can be for the care partner, but here too, for the person who's been diagnosed, journaling, writing things down before memories are lost or where they're at. So this can really work for both of you. I think it's a great example, Diane, that you just read about and how they ripped out the page at the time. And it reminds me of the other writer before who talked about his wife and who she wrote her life story. So it's really a gift. It's an opportunity to do the things we want to do while we still can.
For sure.
We have a couple more comments. So Maureen mentioned, my husband keeps telling me that he has dementia and can't remember anything, and he's just going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have to listen. We have to acknowledge. We have to have compassion. We have to reassure and say, I'm here for you. I'm here. We're on this journey together. I hear you.
Exactly. That compassion and reassurance is so, so important. You're not alone. As we tell caregivers, you're not alone.
Yeah.
We can tell our people that we're caring for that they aren't alone. You're there.
Diane, anything else?
Yeah, we have another 3 or 4 comments. So,
Okay.
so my mom was recently diagnosed but doesn't believe it, saying she does not feel anything different and it's normal to forget things as a normal part of aging. My dad is also in denial. How do you suggest I approach this?
Well, if they're, if nothing, nobody is at risk, and if this is how they're feeling at the time, I think you have to respect that and kind of accept it for what it is. As the disease might progress, there might be things that you will have to deal with at that time. But if nobody is at risk and things are going well and they seem to be functioning, then I think you have to respect that.
Yeah, really good point about respecting where people are at and security. Um, there's two persons here I hear in this that are in denial. So if we just talk about the person with dementia first, it is a reaction, a response that we do see in some dementias, and there's a word for it, agnosia. I can't say the whole word, but when we do not recognize our own limitations, we do not recognize that we have memory loss. That's part of the disease of dementia for the person who's been diagnosed. For the care partner, to also be in denial, that's also a tougher one, especially I think it's a daughter writing about her father. And it's also part of the process, accepting this disease. It also could, be shocking. And I think, as Lucy said, if they're safe, it's okay. But as things progress, if the dad, if her dad still doesn't accept the illness, and there are security issues, it is a point to sit down, help with educational webinars, and help the other care partner accept that this is the journey, and we have to go on it safely.
I'm just going to read another comment by Sergio. I've been honest with my mom about her diagnosis because she notices the change. I try to concentrate on activities she likes and is still motivated with. I ask her to show me how to make traditional dishes, cookies, etc., because I want to continue the tradition. She feels validated in doing so.
Love that.
It's very
Love
sad.
that.
Yeah.
And it's true, right? The recipes are so important. The culture, what the person was all about, so important. And the value of the person, that they're still so valued and loved for all these things.
100%.
Great examples.
Yeah, and Valeria is mentioning that her brother and her spoke to their mom in a very gentle and supportive way about the Alzheimer's diagnosis. She didn't express her emotions about it, but she thinks that sometimes she just forgets about it or doesn't show her feelings. She's not sure, and it is very sad.
Yeah.
It is very sad for for the caregiver, for the children. But, it all depends on the reaction of the person who has the dementia. If it's sort of not affecting them in any way, you just have to, it's more to deal with your own feelings of sadness and what's happening to your parent.
Yeah. And that's why we're here in this space, just even to say it out loud, just to read your comments. We don't want to make light of anything. You can't sometimes wash away things with a lie or a white lie. No, it feels lousy. And this is, as care partners, this is what you deal with in your journey. And sometimes there's nothing you can do except share it with other people like we're doing today. So really, your sharing is so valued.
Suzanne raises a good point. She struggles with using the word lying when her dad says things that are not true. I don't like saying that dad is lying. He's just saying things or giving answers that are not true. My mom insists on using the word lying.
Yeah, it's funny. Words matter. What do you think, Lucy? Any comments on this?
Well, it's almost the same thing as not wanting to argue. I would not use the word lying and maybe sensitize your mom to that. That is just expressing what he's able to express at that particular time due to the disease, due to the fact that he might not understand. Um, and maybe it's accepting. Mom needs to accept and that things have changed, and maybe she's, anger is popping up, and not able to accept the fact that that's where dad is at this particular time. So, as Joanne said, the more education, the more you listen to others, it becomes normalized, and acceptance is so difficult to do.
Any last comment, Diane, or should we move on?
Yeah, Valeria said thank you. And I think someone had written a comment about anosognosia. So I know that's
Anosognosia. No matter how many times I hear the word, it goes out. So let's move on to another scenario. I'm sure many people have faced this one, facing the inability to drive because it so severely limits your autonomy. Lucy, what do you have to say about this one?
It's huge. It really is. Losing autonomy is difficult. When safety requires limited independence, we have no choice. Okay? There's no choice here. You can't let them drive if they're putting themselves and others at risk. So you have to explain that there are changes that are happening. You could say something like, your driving seems a little off today, so let's not drive right now. And the other thing is describe restrictions as temporary if needed, meaning you could say to the person, the doctor wants you not driving for a little while because you are on new medications. I know you're lying, but it's this lie is very important for the safety of themselves and others. And you could also enlist trusted figures. For example, you could say that the SAAQ says it's time to stop driving, but I'm here for you, supporting them at the same time. And sometimes we need to put away keys and kind of hide them. Other creative options can include telling them that the car is in repairs. Then you can offer another explanation. We are waiting for the estimate, or the estimate came back. It's so high. You won't believe it. Let's get another estimate. It doesn't make sense to even repair the car. Let's take the money and use taxis. So you're really, really lying here, but it's important to make sure that the person does not drive.
Yeah, is there anyone in our audience who's gone through this and who's had to, intervene with this?
I'm not seeing any comments yet on driving. So maybe I'll just mention that Lynn had shared the different reactions of her parents to their diagnosis. So my father literally argued with the doctor when he was told about his diagnosis. He doesn't see anything wrong and he generally remains in good spirits. He has anosognosia. But her mother, who also has dementia, she accepted the diagnosis, but she was very sad by it and she declined more rapidly. So Lynn just wanted to share these two reactions with everyone.
It's interesting that sharing because sometimes it's a blessing when we don't remember and we don't have behavior issues and we're content. That to me is a blessing. Than others who have the insight, who know they're losing their memory. Yeah, that's very poignant, and the suffering that comes with it. Thank you for sharing that. It's a tough one. I'm surprised there's not more comments about the driving, but
they're coming in, Lucy. They're coming in now, Joanne.
I was going to say maybe it's because it's so straightforward. So let's hear what do people say about the driving.
So we have a few. So hold on, let me just scroll back up. Okay, so Tina mentions this was so difficult to overcome because my husband was 62 years old. He ended up totaling his car when hitting a traffic pole light. Even the police said they couldn't take his license away. They could only do a breathalyzer test. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be tough because we know, Lucy, I'm sure you experienced this. People say, well, my person still has their license. The doctor won't take it away. This sometimes can be problematic. And then what happens? We wait for there has to be a big catastrophic event and hopefully no one gets hurt. And it's only limited to the damage of the car. But by the way, there are consultants and people that you can hire. You can hire someone to do test drives. I know we've done it for family members and explaining, you wouldn't want anything to happen to your grandchild or a child or someone on the street. So it's important to really be aware. Yeah.
So sorry, lots of comments coming in.
Okay.
So Ellie says, I tried to give his car away, but had to ask for it back. It's in the garage and he's happy with that. When he asked to drive, I try to distract him. I say I know the way, we're almost home, very tough. He's angry about his not driving.
Hmm.
Yeah, sad. But you're able to, that's a good thing that you did. I mean, the fact that you're able to distract him.
And then, so we have different comments. Some people say the doctor had, asked to have the license taken away. So that seems to be very difficult for people to accept, obviously. My grandfather said he was more sad to lose his license than when his wife died.
Oh,
So
hmm.
painful for a man to lose his license. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
My husband still drives and sometimes he goes for long drives. I track him on my tracker app and I'll be asking his doctor to arrange the SAEQ to have a test with him.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. When the doctor signed the paper to take away my dad's license, my dad would tell people that him and the doctor had decided together. There was no discussion about this, but that's how he presented it, and it gave him dignity.
Hmm.
Which I think
Oh,
is a great idea. Yeah.
yeah.
I love that one too. Thank you. That's it?
There's more. Okay, I'll keep going. My mother refused care and even closed her own file with our local GAIN clinic at her earlier stages. It resulted in years of turmoil for our family. Her symptoms became more severe, and what did it for us was when she took the car and threatened to harm herself. Needless
Oh,
to say, the ripple effect of this was rapid, and it's only because of the police and hospital involvement that we now have incredible care, and a great cocktail of meds for her. It was painful to get to this point.
you know what? I think that's another good point to emphasize is, you don't have to do it alone. Use your team. If a doctor turns to you and says, you take care of this, you tell, there's nothing wrong with turning around and saying, I need support. I need to be in a team to help me do this. So reach out. Diane, maybe share a couple more comments, and then just to give enough time for the last one, I'd like to move on to relocation. But are there any just comments you can share?
Sure. My husband denied he was at all capacitated, so the doctor suggested he take a driving test, which he did and passed. We're now at the point where we have to reevaluate. Yeah. And some people just commented on, that they didn't have a choice. The doctor reported to the Ministry of Transport and the license was taken away. So.
I find that's always better for us. When it's not in our hands, the doctor says, the professional says. So, let's be grateful, at least to the care providers who do that. Okay, we're going to move on to the last one, which brings us back to my original story about having to relocate and being honest about that. Lucy, do you have any nuggets to add on this one about, telling the truth, or do we say to the person we're going to visit a place? And well, what do you think? And then we'll go to our audience for this one.
I really think it depends on the stage of the disease. This is such an important issue to discuss early on, not only to understand someone's wishes, but to avoid a promise versus promising to do one's best to avoid relocation if possible. There's nothing wrong with altering the truth to ease the transition.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. One of our writers wrote in, they know have to, they have to not tell the truth. I think a person had passed, but I feel this way about relocation. I understand emotionally that it helps, to make up a story to minimize distress, but it does give me a pain in the pit of my stomach not to be honest with someone or to say to someone, we're going for lunch here, or you're just staying for a few nights. I find this one such a tough one, and I've never had to go through that myself. So I'm wondering if anyone in the audience has gone through this and wants to share.
It's very tough,
Yeah.
Joanne.
I think people are feeling the same way. It's like, what do we say about it? Yeah. What do we say about it? I
And
know
Tina has a comment in the chat. When my husband progressed beyond being exit seeking, I thought it would be great to spend a day at home, but it only triggered anxiety.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it again, we go back to the stages. It's almost easier if a person is more advanced because then we easily know it's not going to make a difference whether we tell them the truth or not. So that sometimes can answer. So you can, I'm just going to say to our participants, you can continue to put things in the chat, but I'm going to at this point just summarize our key takeaways because the hour is coming up to the end. And if there's a lot of comments or more questions, can we stay a few extra minutes, Lucy, or?
For sure.
Okay. So, but let's summarize what we have, at least, what are the big lines of what we've shared with you today? So the big one is obviously lies can be ethical when they protect emotional well-being. And I think we have to use that to make ourselves feel better. The goal is to reduce distress, not to deceive for convenience. So convenience is not a reason. Some situations require honesty, especially when safety is involved, like we've talked about the driving. Care partners should assess their person and each situation individually. Look at the history. Think about how would your person react, and then it's just trial and error. Experts support therapeutic lying if it improves quality of life, and that can be reassuring to us. If you are unsure, consider whether the lie benefits the person with dementia. So on that note, let's just finish our caring conversation together. I'm going to stop sharing if I can do this and come back. We're coming back to the our participants. And Diane, if there's any more, but we're just so grateful for all the comments. Is there anything to share?
There is, yeah. People are really, wow, I just love all the sharing that's taking place in this session today.
Great.
So Paul mentions, okay, I say to my patients that it's to continue rehabilitation, and most of them like the new place and decide to stay. Paul is a doctor.
Wow.
Great.
Deanne says, when my parents wouldn't make a decision early on, it took a crisis situation, hospital stay followed by rehabilitation, that made it impossible to go back home. We lost the choice, but at least we could take advantage of the services that were in place.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, people are just commenting on the webcast. So thank you very much for your feedback. We really appreciate that.
Okay.
Nice. All right, so maybe I'll wrap up then. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so it's almost noon. Wow, time flies. So thank you so much, Joanne and Lucy, and to everyone who participated today. The recording of today's episode will be posted on the Caring Conversations page of our website within the next few weeks. We'd also love to get your feedback on Caring Conversations. I've posted a link in the chat. If you could take a minute to fill that up, I'd really appreciate it. I'll also be sending it by email. So our next Caring Conversations will take place on Wednesday, November 12th at 11 a.m. And we have a special guest, Cynthia Van Frank, who's going to talk about sharing the dementia journey through art. Caring Conversations is a project of the McGill Dementia Education Program, which is funded entirely by private donations. Please visit our website, mcgill.ca/dementia, to sign up for a newsletter, and that way you'll learn about all of our upcoming initiatives. Thanks again, everyone. Take good care.
Everybody, take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Be well.